doing a 5-day fast. Main goals are to really pay attention to the various aspects of the different personas that are going to be speaking to me in my head, and take the position of the judge. Not the judge. I mean, I guess the typical way to describe it would be the watcher, or even the one who watches the watcher. But really just give them all a platform to speak, give them space, love them and understand them, appreciate the perspective that they bring and the aspect of me that they represent, and therefore why they are saying what they're saying. Ultimately, when I complete the fast, I would like to have a deeper appreciation for the way in which somehow there is an orchestral rhythm to it all. And believe more deeply that the chorus that is formed by all of those voices represents the God in me. Hard times make hard men. And in a world of excess, that type of struggle is difficult to come by. And so it must be self-imposed. Now, in the vein of trying to preemptively become a hard man, I'll finish this diary of self-flattery and get the fuck on with it. Wrapping up day one. Feel good. This is known territory. In my experience, one of the strengths of all of the cast of characters, the internal family that I have, is appreciating when we've set our mind to something and abiding by that. I do expect the chatter. The chatter will come, but it's kind of magical that on days where I've committed to doing a 1-day fast, the end of the day feels quite difficult. It feels like you're coming to the finish line. But my experience now, at the end of day one, is relatively pleasant. I can appreciate the lightness that I feel, the focus. Feels damn good. And we push on. Rounding out day number 2. Still charted territory, so no big surprises. Definitely a reduction in, or even elimination of, liver glycogen today. So the glucose stores are gone. Definitely much more sluggish than yesterday, lack of energy, although no brain fog, which is interesting. I still feel focused, but my workout took like 2 hours. For now, nothing overly concerning. I noticed that food, more accurately, the scent of food, didn't create as much of an impulse to eat today, which I find interesting. It was more a reminder that I was fasting, which led my brain in a direction that had me really considering what to break the fast with. So in other words, not let's eat now through some animal instinct, but more accurately, when we eat in the future, when we execute on this goal, what will we eat, which I think is quite distinct, and I'm proud of. So that's my tea in the background. I'm gonna go make that chamomile plain. On to the next. Rise and shine, bitch. Got up too fast. Fell on my face. Had a hell of a time sleeping last night. It was like just tossing and turning. The back pain from the increase in uric acid was unbearable, but ultimately found a really comfortable position sleeping on my back, and most surprising, I was actually able to sleep on my back. Gotta fix this shit on my face now. Wrapping day 3 with a little squat. I've been thinking a lot about the fainting from this morning. I think I have it figured out, at least causally. So on Sunday night, the night before I started the fast, the last thing I ate was a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So a shitload of sugar, which really filled up the glycogen stores. And so as my body went through the process of depleting those glycogen stores, I think having an excess to the point beyond my normal kind of homeostasis just forced the body to work way too hard to get into a state of ketosis. So overnight, I imagine that the uric acid levels rose even higher. It was a super uncomfortable night. And also, my blood pressure probably got lower because that's a phenomenon that happens as you're switching from being glucose adapted to fat adapted. And the culmination of those things, plus, sort of leaping out of bed and trying to get the day started, just gave me a head rush that my body couldn't contend with, and said, yo, we need some blood in this brain. Get your head down on the ground. So I'm very confident it's not going to happen tomorrow. I felt great all day. Had a normal workout. Felt felt powerful, felt like I had more stamina than yesterday. So my hypothesis is that I'm in ketosis now. Don't know where. I don't have any like breath strips or tests. I don't really care how many ketone bodies per millimolar I'm at. Doesn't really matter to me. That's not why I'm doing this. What I've noticed is that my mind doesn't wander as often to long-term goal setting. It can if directed, but it doesn't self-direct in that direction, whereas normally that's a fair amount of my sort of self chatter. All right, that's enough. One last note before wrapping up day 3. When I woke up this morning, I didn't have to go to the bathroom at all. Like, couldn't pee. And I think I got up in the middle of the night to go, but I drank my normal amount of water yesterday. So a gallon, maybe more. And that's super abnormal. That never happens. And so I don't know the mechanism, but it seems like when fasting, my body's requiring more water, and that could be because of the switch from burning carbohydrates and glucose to burning fat. I don't know if that process requires more water, or if the phenomenon of switching from one to the other somehow needs to be facilitated by extra hydration. But just in case, I've drank probably a gallon and a half today. I'm gonna drink a bunch before bed. Even if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't wanna somehow become dehydrated in the middle of the night. And it's possible that that dehydration also led to fainting. So we'll see how that works out. Interesting day 4. Woke up and had a tremendous amount of energy this morning, almost like I had had caffeine. Had 4 hours worth of calls, felt cognitively sharp. There was no grasping for words. There was no mental fog. And after the calls, or shortly after, my energy dropped significantly to the point where it didn't feel right to work out. So I took a nap, 30 minutes, and felt better. Got on the mat, started warming up, continuously kind of ascended the energy ladder to the point where at the end of the workout, I felt better than at the beginning. I definitely needed to take more rest between sets, but I didn't feel much of a dip in overall strength output. So, interesting. The psoas feels loose. I would imagine that's due to a decrease in inflammation. And I've also noticed that the intelligence of my body seems to be taking over more and more. So certain muscles that have been tight over the years are almost intuitively slackening. I noticed while I was sleeping last night, albeit restlessly, that I had hooked the front of my right foot over the edge of the bed and was almost using that to stretch my body. Really interesting stuff. A lot of the pain that I was experiencing from what I believe is the increase in uric acid has diminished. So no lower back pain. I had some like knee, hamstring discomfort, and that has abated almost entirely. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, to day 5. If it feels anything like the high points of today, then it's going to be a fantastic day. Day 5, much the same as day 4. Really solid energy levels in the morning, and took a noticeable dip in the afternoon time, particularly during and after the workout. From a mental perspective, things have really leveled off. There hasn't been any further kind of exponential increase in the mental clarity I would say that leveled off sometime in the afternoon of day 4 of yesterday. Generally speaking, I feel much more calm and serene, certainly less reactive, and there's a noticeable difference in the way that I contemplate time frames. So there's almost no time travel backwards, hardly ever lingering in the past. The obsession about the future is also much less prevalent than it normally is. And so what's left over is just simply being in the moment. Physically, I feel good. The back and knee pain that I was experiencing in day 3 and part of day 4 has completely subsided. And I feel much more in touch with the physical aspects of my organism. So sleep has still been a bit of a struggle. Didn't make it straight through the night last night either. Ended up for like an hour between 3 and 4 a.m. just like doing some physical release of muscles, like abdominal muscles, so psoas and rectus abdominis, just sort of doing some palpation, and then a breathing exercise that I've used a lot for release, which is take a breath in, hold it firmly for 4 seconds, then while the breath is still held in, try and release the target area for 4 more seconds. And then on the exhale, really deepen that release, or go deeper into the release, and therefore kind of slacken the tension of that muscle. And it felt like I just had more focus and ability to stay in that zone, which is quite uncomfortable, especially when you're talking about, I mentioned the psoas, the rectus abdominis, but also certainly the diaphragm is involved. And so whenever you're manipulating that area, you can get some kind of feelings of starvation for oxygen that are being sent to your brain through the various kind of, I think they're the chemoreceptors of the body, which are the receptors that sense oxygenation and then feed signals back into the brain. So generally speaking, pleased with how things have gone, and looking forward to day 6. Interesting morning. When I woke up, there was just a jumble of scripture running through my head. And far be it from me to quote the Bible, but what I first landed on was a passage from Matthew 6:16. I want to read it. Moreover, when ye fast, be not as the hypocrites, of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. Now, I think the Bible and similar texts, the Quran, for example, the Hebrew scriptures, they contain a tremendous amount of sociological wisdom. And that's where their value lies, at least for me. So when I look at that passage, what it stirs in me, the truth that I identify with, is that one needs to endure life in silence. It's correct, it's right to pass along the wisdom of experience to the world, but while enduring, keep it to yourself and allow the experience to percolate, to bake, and to evolve, and give yourself the opportunity to first teach yourself before teaching the world. It's been a weird morning. I was also singing to Be Not Afraid, the Jesuit hymn. So some of the remnants of a Catholic upbringing seem to be bubbling to the surface on the 6th day of a fast. And I suppose that makes sense because there is something very deep about the tradition of fasting, something that societies needed to figure out once agriculture became the norm and food was readily available. How do you reconnect with the physicality of your being? And one of the things that I've learned through not eating is to become more aware of everything. So I've gone for a walk this morning, about 15 minutes. I've come back, done a meditation session. I've got my herbal tea here. Once I finish the tea, I'll do a bit of reading, have a workout, and then start to prepare to break the fast. All things considered, I feel phenomenal. Right now, I'm in a state of consciousness that's very clear, that's very non-reactionary, that is quite present as the norm, as the default state. It's not being induced mentally, it's kind of permeating my soul. I'm sad to leave this state, but as I mentioned, I do have faith that the lessons that I am ingesting can be formulated into a schematic born from wisdom rather than knowledge that I can keep sacred and deploy while in other states of consciousness. Done.